Shana Tova, Happy New Year. Was Friday evening. The Jewish New Year commenced the doorway that opens into this new year and closes the last, this moment of beginning and ending. And it comes with a mixed message. So I was thinking about mixed messages. And for those of you who are parents or who have parents, these, you know how we sometimes receive and give mixed messages? I'm guessing this isn't just me. I noticed with Henry, I wanted him to stop calling me from the other room, that if you want to talk to me, come find me where I am. And so I would have this conversation with him, and I would respond sometimes when he would yell out by not responding or doing it. But half the time he would call out, and I would just rush on over. What do you need? How can I help? And this mixed message is confusing. Does this really matter to Papa or not? And here at the beginning of the Jewish New Year, you take the ritual, right, is to eat a slice of apple with honey, to taste of the sweetness of the world. May your new year be blessed with the sweetness of the world. And yet at the very same moment, the clock starts ticking for the 10 days you have to atone for anything you did wrong the last year. Right in this same moment, you taste the sweetness of the world and you are reminded of the danger of messing it all up. And I think there's something, deeply true about that. Our wise selves know that the beauty of the world calls out to us with apples and honey, and yet to reach for it, to live fully, is a risky, dangerous proposition. We hurt ourselves and each other over and over again. We were talking about the covenants that we make last week a little bit, and this covenant that tries to hold us together through that reaching and messing up. And the first covenant, the first explicit covenant in those old Bible stories is the moment of Noah and the rainbow, right? And so we've had the Noah story, which I know for Unitarian Universalists, like so many of those old stories, it can be a weird one. I heard about a Unitarian kid responding to her first exposure to that story with a litany of questions. I imagine it's not unfamiliar to many of you who've discussed this story with kids. First of all, she said, how could 2 of every single type of animal fit on a boat? And how could you survive with that much animal poop on the boat? And what if the animals fought or ate each other? Or how did they have enough food and water for the humans and the animals for all those days? And how did Noah keep the birds on the ship? They're so used to flying freely. And why did God harm all those humans and animals who hadn't done anything wrong? What did the dogs of the world, she asked, do to deserve being murdered in the flood? There's a commentary on the story that says that while they were caring for the animals on the boat day and night, Noah and his family did not taste of sleep. This call to love the world, to love the animals, to love what was left, even as the world was ending, was so great that the world was ending, and yet they worked so hard that they did not taste of sleep. My mentor, Jake Morrill, he talks about the idea that you can feel the world is ending, and yet somehow it's still worth working day and night. Still worth working day and night to feed the animals, still worth following the impulse to care. this both and. I think so many of us felt it at the early days, especially of the pandemic, when we were talking about that Mr. Rogers quote. I'm sure you heard it going around of when something goes wrong, look for the helpers. Keep your focus on those. And this truth that there is all of this abundance of goodwill available to us, and yet at the same time, the world really does feel like it's ending sometimes. The fear, the overwhelm, what it's like to live through these moments of apocalypse that come again and again in our personal lives and our collective life. The world is ending, and yet somehow it's still worth following the impulse to care. So the word, this weird theological word for thinking about the end of the world, is eschatology, from the Greek of eschaton, an ending. And we'll call it the doorway in our theological house, this place of threshold, of beginning and ending. Where do we come from and where are we going? Religious thinking all the world round seems inevitably to have to ponder this question. And many religions contain a tradition of this thinking that offers some kind of image of the world to come, a different state of existence which will follow an ultimate ending of our world as it is. This world, our lives, will ultimately be judged, and some will pass through a final doorway into a world to come. You know this idea, right? All of us grew up with some kind of image from some tradition or another, whether it was the Christian kingdom of heaven or one of the many worlds to come in so many traditions, or just the futuristic paradise of the Jetsons. Some world to come. Things are going to be different. And there's two distinct imaginings in these worlds to come, most of them. One is that it's another world, not this world. It's in another plane of existence, not this lifetime. And that second, it's for some and not for others. Who is in and who is out of the world to come? It's a subject of long-standing debate in almost all theological traditions. And I think luckily we inherited a tradition, the Universalist side of our tradition, that makes that abundantly clear. We believe whatever is ultimately to come, it's for everyone. There is no separation of the saved from the damned. That old Universalist eschatological image was of the last unrepentant sinner. Just, dyed in the wool, not going to give it up. The last unrepentant sinner being dragged, kicking and screaming into heaven, unable to resist the power and love of the Almighty. Historically, Universalism was called the gospel of God's success. And the idea has won out in so many circles that don't even know themselves to be Universalists. It's taken such hold that even prominent evangelicals like Rob Bell wrote this very popular book, Love Wins, have been won over. But as humanism shaped our tradition, our universalism became this worldly. The Universalist minister Gordon McKeeman once quipped that Universalists believe that all of us are going to end up together in heaven, so we might as well learn to get along with each other here and now. This is not a world to come universalism, but a practical one that says that all of us earthlings, we share a common destiny, and so we are called to a common purpose. And that idea, that way of thinking about universalism, it was part of a broader historical movement, thinking about, right, where did our theological house come from? How was it constructed generations ago? A broader movement throughout liberal Christianity that came to be called social gospel Christianity. Maybe a century and a half ago began and rose in prominence through the 20th century. And the eschatology of social gospel Christianity is this: it's humans' job to bring about the kingdom of heaven here on earth. That's the end goal, the vision of end times, a world where by the work of human hands, our world has been made just. But there's a limitation in this way of thinking, and it was the way I was raised, and I imagine many of you were as well, this way of working toward making the world into our vision of paradise. Because the social gospel holds up the vision of a perfect world to come, even though it's by our hands and here on earth, it can leave us fighting and striving in ways that don't ultimately serve our own souls or the planet. Certainly in ways that don't bridge the daunting chasms we're facing of cultural divide. It leads us to that us against them, to the oppression and the resistance. I remember Michelle Alexander, the author of The New Jim Crow, when we were talking about the resistance in the wake of President Trump's election, she offered a beautiful corrective. She said, no, it's not we who are resisting. We are joining our forces to that liberatory river, the liberatory river of history. And it's those who would hold on to a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, those who would hold on to the status quo, who are attempting to resist that liberatory river. And so if we find ourselves trying with our lives to join with the liberatory river, we might free ourselves from that belief that we know how things should be. Here's in Rebecca Parker's words, who I mentioned last week, the hoped-for future, she says, that image of the perfect world to come, perpetually condemns the present. The failure of the world to conform to God's vision of justice and abundance in that social gospel way of working, the failure of the world to conform is laid at humanity's feet. We have not yet worked smart enough, been well organized enough, convinced enough people, or corrected the flaws in our approach. And so she offers, instead of this social gospel eschatology, what she called a radically realized eschatology. A realized eschatology is the idea that the end came about with Jesus' coming. And she's removing that sense of one moment with one teacher and saying instead every moment, all of this beloved holy cosmos, it is the paradise we've been seeking. It begins, she says, with affirming that we are already standing on holy ground. This earth, and none other, is a garden of beauty, a place of life. Neglecting it for some imagined better place will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will make earth a wasteland. There is no land promised to any of us other than the land already given, the world already here. This radically realized eschatology says the flood, it's part of this paradise. It says the exhausting work of caring for those animals 24/7, that's part of paradise too. It says firefighters putting their lives on the line to save homes and communities, that's an ethical response, an appropriate ethical response to living in the beauty of this world. It says we might not be able to change the immigration system tomorrow, but we can offer care and accompaniment to undocumented immigrants in our community. It says we might not be able to end homelessness today, but we can paint fences for a tiny house village down the hill. It says we can let ourselves be moved to action, not by the need to make some perfect world in the future, but by the beauty of the world and the way it breaks our hearts. Because the only paradise that is to be found is the one here and now, this paradise that contains suffering and struggle right alongside beauty and delight. Pain and beauty, struggle and joy are integral parts of our paradise. The world to come is here and now. The arc of the moral universe is long. I imagine it must be infinitely long, with no stopping point, no destination to arrive at, but its justice-shaped bend is part of our here and now. I had the opportunity this summer to visit the DeYoung. And there's an incredible exhibit by Kehinde Wiley that I'm going to tell you about in a couple of weeks. So if you have a chance to go see it, I would just highly recommend it. But there was another exhibit that I want to mention today that was Ansel Adams in Our Time, looking at Ansel Adams' photography of paradise in the context of those who took images before and since. And one of the things that struck me was these artists, contemporary photographers today, were looking at those same places, those same images that Ansel Adams photographed, and imagining themselves and us, culture and context, in that paradise which for Adams had been removed, remote from human life. You could see images of people and the impacts of people right there in those holy places. And it made me think of this story, again, from Rebecca Parker, about a bus ride in the Ansel Adams wilderness. She's getting to know her seatmate, the friend of a family member. She says he said he'd been raised Catholic and that his wife was the daughter of a Methodist minister. Church was important to him. I can't believe all the doctrines, he said. I was never comfortable with the bloody crucifix hanging over the altar. I couldn't understand why we would be worshiping it, but I learned a way of life from the church that I have not rejected. What's that way, she asked. And, oh, it's simple, he told her. Love your neighbor as yourself. Try to help, not harm. Do what you can to make a difference. And he went on that we do foster care for kids. He said it was heartbreaking to see some of the violence, the abuse, and deprivation these children have experienced, but he and his wife welcomed them into their home and did what they could. Not even love can repair the damage sometimes, he said. Then he asked about the book topic that Rebecca was working on, and she said, paradise. Paradise, he mused and looked out the window of the bus for a few moments at the bright sky, the deep green forest pines, the alpine meadows coming into view and rising above them, the sharp peaks of the minarets. Do you mean paradise like where we are right now? Yes, she said, like where we are right now. And they both gazed out the window for a few moments, breathing the pungent fresh air. This is enough, he said. You know that because you help kids, she said. And the cloud of thoughtfulness passed over his face. Yes, he replied, that's right. And she ends the story with this reflection. She says, we come to know this world as paradise when our hearts and souls are reborn through the arduous and tender task of living rightly with one another in the earth. Generosity and mutual care are the pathways into knowing that paradise is here and now. This way of living is not utopian. It doesn't spring from the imagination of a better world, but from a profound embrace of this world. It brings hope home to today, to this moment, and its possibilities for faithful love. Not even love can repair the damage sometimes, he said. And yet, this friend and his wife still show up with their love. Homes and lives and souls cannot always be repaired, not even by the greatest love, yet the act of seeing and loving these broken places still matters. We taste the sweetness of the world. Paradise offers itself to us in apple and honey, and as we embrace the world as it is, we are moved also to lament. We lament, we search our hearts for the bitterness that we have harbored, not to protect ourselves from an ultimate judgment to come, but because our love of this world moves us to live rightly in it. So may we fall in love with this world over and over again. Fall in love with this here and now, with all our imperfect institutions and leaders. This here and now, even with rising seas and smoky skies, divisions that can seem insurmountable. This here and now, where we are still yet preparing the next generation to live more gently on the planet and with one another. May we fall in love with this world again and again. Fall in love with this holy ground, here and now, in its beauty and its brokenness. May it be so, and amen.